Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ Riesiger. It's a bit behind schedule, but it finally looks like winter in Montana.
The snow falling across the city stacked multiple inches on top of Monday's already half a foot of snow.
That new snow also covering up ice and slush, making for slippery, messy driving conditions today and on into tonight.
But also on those roadways, plows. At least 20 city crews out tonight clearing major roadways, and city contracted plows are also hitting residential areas across the city. Much of the work they began on Monday was erased in just a few hours.
The City of Billings Public Works Facebook page has the latest on where those plows are, but it's important to not crowd the plows and make sure to give yourself enough time to get where you need to go safely.
And for the latest, Bob, this is the most snow we've had on the ground in a long while.
Can you guys believe it's just under 2 months away and spring begins? Just thought I'd throw that out there for you.
Something to look forward to.
Yes.
Exactly right. Well, let me show you what's happening out there tonight. Doppler radar shows you the scattered snow showers continue to linger around the Billings and Yellowstone County. They're on their way on towards the state line with Wyoming and also pushing up against the Beartooth Mountains, where we're getting some upslope flow, and that enhances the snowfall development up in the Beartooth Mountains and also in the Red Lodge area. And take a look, we got more snow behind that as well. This whole thing continues to push its way out of the state the next day or so, but let me look at how much snow we've already had. Places in our area, Lockwood had 5 inches, same thing, 10 miles east of Mold, 5 inches. Billings Airport, 5, 4.5 over at 7 miles west of Billings. 4 miles southwest of Billings also had 4 inches of snow. And in that same area, you can see we still have the threat board kind of filled tonight. Wind chill factors up by Glasgow and northeastern Montana to 25 below zero. Here in the Billings area, maybe 2 to 5 inches of snow. The Beartooths could see 10 to 15 inches of snow. But up by Great Falls, the storm's starting to wind down there, and another 1 to 2 inches of snow expected in that region. So things are probably going to die down here in about a couple of more hours, and then it starts to look a lot better. We'll have more on that coming your way in a few more minutes.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Also, we want to note that water has been restored in Laurel, and power is now back on for some 1,700 customers in the Belfry and Red Lodge areas.
Now, here in Billings, School District 2 will enact alternate bus routes for Thursday. Lodge Grass Public Schools in St. Labray will have a delayed start at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and Pryor Schools and St. Charles Mission School will be closed tomorrow. 5 people are dead after a shooting inside a Central Florida bank today. 21-year-old Zephon Zaver barricaded himself into the bank this afternoon, where he shot and killed the 5 victims. As crisis negotiators talked to Zaver, officers moved in and made an arrest. More information is expected to be released tomorrow. And in Arizona, 36-year-old Nathan Sutherland, a licensed practical nurse, is accused of impregnating a woman in a vegetative state who gave birth last month. Police say Sutherland's DNA matched DNA taken from the baby. Sutherland is being held on a $500,000 bond. Phoenix police say the baby is doing well. The 29-year-old woman has been at that facility since 1992.
On day 33 of the partial government shutdown, President Trump told House Speaker Nancy Pelosi he wanted to go ahead with his State of the Union address next week. She said not while the shutdown continues, and then that debate got even hotter. Natalie Brand has the latest from Capitol Hill.
President Trump and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi brought the State of the Union address front and center again Wednesday in their battle over the border wall.
The State of the Union speech has been canceled by Nancy Pelosi because she doesn't want to hear the truth. She doesn't want the American public to hear what's going on.
President Trump's comments came as Speaker Pelosi stood by her initial letter sent to the president saying the State of the Union should be postponed until the government reopens.
Let's work together on a mutually agreeable date.
In back and forth letters sent Wednesday, the speaker made it clear the president is not welcome to speak in the House chambers until the shutdown ends. Mr. Trump said he would look for alternative venues.
The radical Democrats, what's going on in that party is shocking.
Friday will mark 2 missed paychecks for the impacted federal workers since this partial shutdown began more than a month ago.
They need their check, no more food banks.
They delivered their message to lawmakers a day before the Senate will vote on dueling proposals to fund the government.
Time to make a deal. And fortunately, a deal is on the table.
One includes the president's proposal to extend protections for Dreamers for 3 years in exchange for border wall funding.
The first vote is the president's hostage-taking position codified into an amendment.
The Democratic proposal does not include funding for a wall. Neither is expected to have the bipartisan support needed to pass. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Well, President Trump tweeted in the last hour that he will do the State of the Union address when the shutdown is over. Meanwhile, 5 former Homeland Security secretaries, including the president's former chief of staff, John Kelly, all wrote a letter urging the president and Congress to restore funding to DHS.
The government shutdown isn't only impacting furloughed workers, but also local businesses who depend on those clients. Sarah's Mexican restaurant in downtown Billings has seen a decrease in customers since the shutdown began 5 weeks ago. Now, this video was taken during today's lunch rush. On a normal day, the owners say there's a line out the door. Luis Moran says since the shutdown, business has dropped 40 to 50%.
Usually at this time, usually it's real busy, and I notice it's slower volume going on, but we're still hanging on and doing the best we can and doing more promotional stuff and contacting refineries and stuff like that.
In light of the loss in revenue, Moran says he will likely need to step up advertising and social presence and offer customers deals on food to regain lost profits.
Tonight, we take a look at how Montana voters rate our elected officials and how they feel about a few key issues, including some before the current legislative session.
MTN chief political reporter Mike Dennison and MSU political scientist David Parker break down those numbers.
According to the poll, the highest approval ratings for statewide officials go to Governor Steve Bullock, a Democrat, and Republican U.S. Senator Steve Daines. 60% of those polled said they think Bullock is doing a good job, and 58% said the same about Daines. Only 34% disapproved of Bullock's job as governor, and 31% didn't like Daines. Daines is up for re-election in 2020, and Bullock has been mentioned as a possible opponent, although Bullock has indicated he may run for president. Democratic U.S. Senator Jon Tester gets a 53% approval rating in the poll, and President Trump enjoys the same approval mark in Montana. Republican Congressman Greg Gianforte came in at 50% approval rating in the poll, with 45% disapproving of his job. So what does this mean going forward for the two Steves, Bullock and Daines?
Let's talk about Steve Daines first. I think that he's in a catbird seat for that Senate election on 2 levels. One, I think the high approval rating will discourage Republican primary challenges from emerging, but also it might discourage some Democratic candidates to not run against him and perhaps run for a Tier B race. Steve Bullock. The good news for him, 60%, he's the most popular politician in the state. I think it's going to be hard for a lot of the people in the legislature to say no to him. It also, if he is running for president like he says he is, then this is another thing he can talk about in the stump in Iowa and in New Hampshire.
Next, we're going to look at the results for some of the key issues facing Montana voters. We asked whether Montana should be able to impose work requirements for able-bodied adults getting Medicaid coverage. 76% of those polled said yes, and only 13% said no. Governor Bullock isn't wild about those work requirements, but he is in favor of publicly funded voluntary preschool in Montana. And 49% of those polled say that's a good idea, while 28% did not. Should teachers in Montana be allowed to carry guns in schools? 46% of our respondents said yes, but 42% said no. And finally, on illegal immigration, 65% of Montana voters agree that it's a serious problem in America, while only 24% said it's not. So what does this mean about Bullock's plans at the legislature for Medicaid expansion and preschool? 2 big things.
Let's talk about Medicaid expansion first. I don't see a route here moving forward without Steve Bullock giving in to some sort of Medicaid requirement. It is terribly popular here, overwhelmingly popular. And Steve Bullock, I think it's essential to his legacy, both as governor as a potential presidential candidate, for him to get this passed. Pre-K. What was interesting about pre-K, he's got 49% strongly agree with a potential pre-K program. The other thing is there's not a lot of strong opposition. I think it's very possible that he could actually get something through this legislature on this particular issue because there's not a lot of overwhelmingly negative opposition to it at this point.
I guess we'll find that out soon. Thank you, David. I'd like to thank all of the people who responded to our poll. We learned a lot, and we'll hope to do it again next year. I'm Mike Dennison with David Parker, reporting from MTN News in Bozeman.
All right, thanks, Mike. Now, you can see more complete poll results on our website.
An early morning fire destroyed 2 garbage trucks on Billings South Side, causing over $200,000 in damages. That fire was reported just after 1 this morning at the Republic Services Yard on Nell Avenue. Deputy Fire Marshal Andrew McLean says the 2 trucks received heavy fire damage to the interior of the cabs and are considered a total loss. 2 other trucks received minor exterior heat damage. Well, the fire is still under investigation. McLean believes it was an accident.
Tonight, more reaction from the University of Montana as well as Montana Grizzly Athletics as fans and students mourn the loss of a senior player. 22-year-old Andrew Harris is believed to have committed suicide Tuesday. Harris was a graduate of Glacier High School in Kalispell and led the Wolfpack to a 2014 state football championship. He earned a spot with the Montana Grizzlies playing last year under the leadership of Coach Bobby Houck, and today his family, friends, teammates, and Grizz Nation all mourn his loss.
Well, Coach Houck released a statement today saying the Grizzly family will continue to mourn the passing of Andrew Harris. Right now, our primary concern is for his immediate family, their well-being, and their privacy. UM has made a number of resources available to all students and staff who need counseling during this tough time. Resources are also available here in Billings.
This week, MSUB has been focused on addressing suicide prevention and support for people who need help. Q2's David J. joins us now with more on that. What's available at MSUB? David.
Jeanelle, Russ, MSUB Student Health Services has help for students dealing with mental health issues. The office has insight into mental health from surveying students on what impedes them from doing well academically.
Every year the top 5 is stress, anxiety, depression, work. So in other words, trying to balance work and going to school and home life, and then sleep. We know from our data that most of our students aren't getting enough sleep, and that can really set you up for mental health issues, including depression.
Mental health counseling is available to students at MSUB Student Health Services, and some is also available on the website. Information that is at msubillings.edu. If students have concerns about other students, there is help at See Something, Say Something. Also have pages for student health and suicide prevention. These are all available to MSUB students. Darla Tyler McSherry says for those not attending MSUB, a good place for information is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Jeanelle, Russ?
All right, thank you, David.
Coming up on tonight's 10 o'clock news, it's pint-sized farming that has a massive following. We'll show you.
Plus, are these guys doing the tango, perhaps the salsa, maybe even a foxtrot?
And in sports, Scott chats with Tony Romo about Super Bowl 53 a week from Sunday right here on Q2.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.